Who was the girl who rode into war and changed the course of a nation? A peasant, a teenager, a voice in the wilderness. She claimed to hear angels. She claimed to see visions, and yet she became one of the most feared and revered figures of her time. How could someone so young, so small, so seemingly powerless lead armies and inspire kings? This is the story of Joan of Arc, the Maid of Orleans, a story of courage that defied the odds, of faith that refused to waver, and of a legacy that still echoes through history. Act 1. The Humble Beginnings. Joan was born around 1412 in Domremy, a small village in northeastern France. She was the daughter of peasants, ordinary people with ordinary lives. She tended sheep, she prayed, she worked the fields. Her life was quiet, simple, unremarkable. But from an early age, Joan claimed to hear voices: Saint Michael, Saint Catherine, Saint Margaret. They spoke to her, they guided her, and they told her that she had a destiny to save France. Most would have dismissed her as a dreamer, but Joan listened. She trained herself to resist fear. Even as a child, she showed a remarkable moral courage, a strength of spirit that could not be ignored. Interesting fact, she taught herself to ride horses and handle weapons in secret, preparing for a destiny she could barely understand. At the time, her country was in chaos. The 100 Years' War had raged for decades. The French were losing. England controlled large parts of France. And yet, a girl from a quiet village was about to turn the tide. Act 2. The Call to Arms. At age 16, Joan left her village and traveled to Vaucouleurs to meet the local commander. She convinced him that she had been sent by God. And then, in a move that would shock all of France, she walked into the presence of Charles VII, the Dauphin, the future king of France. The court was skeptical. How could a teenage girl command soldiers? How could someone with no training lead an army? Yet Joan's confidence, her unshakable faith, and her vision of divine mission convinced them. She was given armor, a sword, and soldiers. She became the symbol of hope for a nation on the brink of collapse. Quote, "I am not afraid. I was born to do this." She was no longer just a girl from Domremy. She was Joan of Arc, and France would never be the same. Act 3. The Siege of Orleans. The English had besieged Orleans. The city was starving. The French forces were demoralized. Joan arrived. She carried her banner into battle, refusing to wield a weapon. Her presence alone inspired soldiers. Under her leadership, the French launched a daring attack. Within days, Orleans was free. She had done the impossible. A teenage girl had lifted the spirit of a nation, proving that courage can outshine numbers, that conviction can outmatch fear. Fun fact, she was injured during the siege, shot in the shoulder by an arrow, but refused to leave the battlefield. Joan's victories did not stop with Orleans. She led the Dauphin to Reims, where he was crowned king, fulfilling part of her divine mission. But her growing fame also made her dangerous to her enemies. Act 4. Capture and Trial. In 1430, Joan was captured by Burgundian forces, allies of the English. She was imprisoned, chained, and treated like a common criminal. Soon, she faced a trial orchestrated not by soldiers, but by theologians, priests, and judges, men who claimed authority over her soul. She was accused of heresy, witchcraft, and cross-dressing because she dared to wear armor and lead men into battle. Most would have bent under the weight of intimidation, under the threat of death. But not Joan. She met her judges with calm resolve. She answered every question with intelligence, honesty, and unshakable faith. When they demanded she recant her visions, she refused. When they asked her to denounce God's guidance, she held her ground. "I am not afraid of any man, for God is my guide," she said. Her answers were so clever and fearless that many at the trial were astonished a teenager could confront them so boldly. Even her captors noted her dignity, her composure, and her unyielding moral courage. At one point, they pressured her to admit falsehoods, to give them an excuse to execute her. She refused. She remained true to her convictions, knowing that truth and faith were stronger than fear. During the trial, she repeatedly challenged the authority of the clergy who questioned her, insisting that only God had the right to judge her. Her boldness shook the court and terrified her enemies, who knew that a simple confession could save her life. But Joan chose integrity over survival. Ultimately, the English and their allies condemned her to death, not because she had sinned, but because she had stood unyielding in the face of worldly power. Joan's trial was not just a legal proceeding, it was a testament to the power of conviction, faith, and moral courage. She showed the world that true strength comes not from armies, titles, or wealth, but from the soul that refuses to bow to fear. Act 5. Martyrdom and Legacy. On May 30th, 1431, Joan of Arc was burned at the stake in Rouen. She died at 19, but her story was far from over. Her courage inspired generations. Her visions became legend. Her life became a symbol of moral and spiritual virtue in the face of impossible odds. She was canonized as a saint in 1920. Joan of Arc reminds us, courage is not the absence of fear. Faith is not blind, and virtue often demands the ultimate sacrifice. Joan of Arc was a girl, a peasant, a visionary, and yet she led armies, challenged kings, and faced death without surrender. She asks us a question today. Will we act when we are afraid? Will we stand for what is right, even when it costs everything? Her life is a call to reflection, to courage, to virtue in action. If her story inspired you, reflect honestly, choose courage, and subscribe for more stories of men and women who shaped history through virtue, sacrifice, and moral action. Virtue, courage, sacrifice,